Yes, glad to have you with us, Professor.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, my.
So,
yes.
This okay? Everything okay? This is the right view?
Yes, it is, Professor. I think we're okay. And yes. Oh, yeah, thank you. Professor, just to let you know that there will be two sessions of Q&A later on. The first one will be moderated by Ms. Dayu here, and the second one will be moderated by Dr. Dino.
Yeah. That sounds good.
All right, Professor, and we're gonna start at 8, which means in the 10 minutes.
In 10 minutes, okay. So I just wanted to make sure everything is okay. So I can just hang around and I'll come back in a minute, okay?
All right.
Let me sign off now, come back again? No.
I think just leave the camera on, Professor.
Okay. I'll just be back in a minute, yeah.
All right, Professor.
Okay. Guys, giving me anything? Or did you hear me? Okay. Otherwise, just some more to do. Okay. I don't know. The Chinese will be okay. I'm sure. Arun, do you want a comic book? Do you have any links? Huh? You gave them up? Gave them all again? So bad. Yeah, there's links on here. Okay, so Dino is going to be here, isn't he?
Yeah, Pak Dino will be joining us at around 8:15 because he has another interview.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Okay.
And I think it should be in your interest that to know that we have received 250 registrants and another 100 registrants from one university, Mbak Dayu's university, Binus, which is Binus University in Jakarta. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Mbak Dayu here is a crowd puller.
Hello.
Amitav, yeah.
Hi, good evening.
Yes, so you're from Binus. Which university are you from?
Bina Nusantara. Yes.
Bina Nusantara. Yeah. So you were going to.
So would you like to say a few words before the Q&A, or should we just go straight?
No,
okay.
I mean, you can just introduce me. We just get into the question.
All right. Yeah.
And answer. And do you have questions ready, or it will be from the audience?
It will be from the audience, but I have prepared a number of questions that's just to warm up. Like yesterday, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership is signed between ASEAN and 5 other countries. So probably I'll ask your view on that, just to kickstart the discussion.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that'll be fine.
Yeah. And then I'll collect 2 or 3 questions at one go.
Okay, that'll be fine. And the audience would be in, they will be live somewhere, but I am not going to see them, am I?
Yes, you're going to be able to see them later on.
Later on? Okay. This setting looks okay? My study, this is my study.
Wow.
You can
I'm
see
jealous.
my Borobudur painting from Jogja.
I am from Jogja, actually. It's yeah.
Okay, I bought this 5 years ago. Last time I was there, I forget again, about 5 years ago. It's a hand painted batik. And in fact, it has a very nice trick. I'll show you. It has a nice too bright.
Wow.
So in the night, you leave the light on, and there's a light on the back, and it looks like,
it's sunrise, right?
Very natural sunrise, yeah. So I usually leave it on in the night because my study leading to our bedroom, so it's kind of nice to walk up and see this. But right now, it's probably a bit too bright, so I would just go back to the normal. And I'll turn that off. I mean, it's not too bright for us, isn't it? Yeah.
No, it's good, Professor.
So I leave it on or off?
Either way is fine, I think, Professor.
Which is better? This is better or this is better?
Oh, I think off is better, Professor.
Yeah, on is better.
All right. Okay, as the committee just told me that I need to admit all of the participants right now. So if you can stand by, Ms. Dayu and Professor.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining early, and we will start the event in 5 minutes, so please stand by. I would like to ask everyone who has joined this room to open up your camera, and please keep your audio muted throughout the session. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you very much for joining early, and we will start the event in 2 minutes, so please stand by. I would like to ask everyone to open up your camera and keep your audio muted throughout the session. Thank you very much. seconds.
Oh, yeah, yeah, okay.
Yes, we're gonna start in a few seconds.
Hi, Amitav, Professor, how are you?
Good, good, good.
You're looking good.
Well, thank you. I got ready for this event.
Yes, I hope you're careful. I read from, I was watching CNN, they said the cases are going crazy, the spike.
Yeah, it is, but I mean, everywhere, but Maryland is still okay where we are living. And also, it's mainly people who have been out during the elections, and we have not gone out.
Mm-hmm.
So we just stay at home, and we have another house on the Chesapeake Bay,
Okay.
which is right on the water, and it's a completely rural, so
Okay.
right on the waterfront. So we actually often spend time. I just came back just about a couple of hours ago, because it's there's nobody there, just the waterfront.
Yes.
And I actually was going to do this from there, but I thought I'll come back here. There's more stuff in this room. That's more like a cottage.
Yes, yes. And the university, there's no class.
There is university is now as most universities
Online.
is online completely. So they are not going to reopen until fall next year.
Yeah. Is that good? Is that good or bad? That everything is online.
It's getting at well, it's not for one whole year. It's not good. It will be actually more than a year and 3 months, and that's it's very tiring for professors. There's a lot more work because of online teaching, and also students don't like it either. They want to be in person.
Yeah.
So it's not good for either. If one semester, 6 months is okay, but it's going to be more than a year. So it's getting to be getting on people's nerves, and it is a lot more work to teach online courses.
Yes, yeah.
I do 2 classes a week like this, 3 hours. But luckily, I'm not teaching in January, and I'm on sabbatical next year. So I have no teaching for the next year and a half.
Okay. I'll join you.
Okay.
Thank you very much for the know.
Okay, good.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna start the event now. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to FPCI Global Town Hall 2020 pre-conference event titled Ask Professor Amitav Acharya Anything about US election, world order, ASEAN, international security, IR theories, Indo-Pacific, except about how to get a six-pack abs. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Willie from FPCI, and I will be your master of ceremony for today. First and foremost, I would like to thank everyone who have joined this pre-conference event. I hope everyone is well and healthy despite these trying times we are all in. I also would like to remind everyone to open up your camera and to make this discussion feels more lively. Ladies and gentlemen, I shall inform you that FPCI Virtual Global Town Hall 2020 will be convened in just 4 days on Friday, 20th of November 2020. This conference will be a global discussion which covers participants from different time zones, including Jakarta, Seoul, Rio, Beijing, London to Washington, D.C. Hence, it will be a global discussion around the world, around the clock. Global Town Hall 2020 also invited world leaders and most sought after speakers on this planet today. So please share the news to your friends and colleagues, and we will have a very great discussion at Global Town Hall 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, this pre-conference event is aimed to satisfy everyone's curiosity as we come closer to the virtual Global Town Hall 2020. This event is to provide a platform where anyone can ask anything to experts in their respective fields. Therefore, there will be no keynote presentation at this session. However, our discussion will go straight to a question and answer session led by our moderator, which I later on will introduce. I would now encourage everyone to flood up the chat box below and with any question that you might have in mind. Joining with us today is our exclusive speaker, Professor Amitav Acharya. Professor Acharya is a distinguished professor of international relations at School of International Service, American University, and one of the best known and most prolific scholars in the discipline of international relations. How are you, Professor Amitav?
Thank you. I'm fine. I'm fine. Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you with us, Professor. And we also have with us Dr. Dino Patijalo, the founder and chairman of Foreign Policy Community of Indonesia. And Pak Dino will be delivering an opening remarks today and also will moderating the session.
Ibu Dayu aja dong, habis moderator. Ya, saya moderator nih buat Dayu aja habis ini.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yes. How are you, Pak Dino?
Very good, thank you, thank you. And I don't, my remark is simply hello and welcome. And you tuned in not for me, but for Amitav. So Professor Amitav, you know, the floor is yours, moderated by Mbak Dayu. Yeah.
Thank you, Pak Dino. And of course, we have with us today also our moderator, Ms. Dayu Nirma Amurwanti. Ms. Dayu is a faculty member at International Relations Department of Binus University and policy advisor at the Royal Norwegian Embassy in Jakarta. She's actually my lecturer back in my university days. She was also one of the moderators at our annual conference on Indonesian foreign policy last year. Mbak Dayu, how are you?
Good. How are you? How is everyone?
Yes, thank you very much, Mbak Dayu. And now we shall start this discussion by inviting our chairman of Foreign Policy Community of Indonesia, Dr. Dino Patijalo, to deliver his opening remarks. And to Dr. Dino, time is yours.
Okay, again, my opening remark is simply hello, how are you? And the floor is yours. Nobody wants to hear me speak at this time. I think they all want to hear what you have to say about things. So thank you for everybody for joining. And don't forget, I'll see you on this Friday on the 20th of November. And get all your friends to register because this is the biggest foreign policy event of the year in Indonesia. Yeah. So thank you, Professor Amitav, for doing this. You're always a friend of FPCI.
My pleasure.
Yes, thank you very much, Pak Dino, for that quick remark. And without further ado, we shall start this discussion by inviting Ms. Dayu Amurwanti to moderate the first session of Q&A in this discussion. And for Ms. Dayu, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Willie. Thank you, Your Excellency, Ambassador Dino, and welcome everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Professor Amitav Acharya. Thank you for spending your evening with us. This is still Sunday evening, right? US time. So this session is about, you know, any of the participants can ask Professor Amitav Acharya anything. So let me give you a brief introduction of Professor Amitav Acharya. He is a distinguished professor at School of International Service, American University, Washington, D.C. He is also the UNESCO Chair in Transnational Challenges and Governance. He is the first non-Western scholar, president of International Studies Association, one of the most prominent association of international studies around the world. He used to be the professor at York University, Toronto, chair in Global Governance, University of Bristol. He is also a prolific writer, and some of his writings include Constructing Global Order, 2018, The End of American World Order, Why Govern the Making of Southeast Asia, Whose Ideas Matter, and any more. His essays are also published in a number of prominent journals such as International Studies Quarterly, Journal of Asian Studies, Foreign Affairs, and many more. So to our audience today, this is a very good opportunity to ask questions, especially learning the very diverse writings of Professor Amitav Acharya and also his diverse experience as well. So what I would like to suggest you do is type your question in the chat box, write your name _ institution and go ahead with your question, and we'll read out your question and Professor Amitav Acharya will be happily answering all those. So let me kickstart the discussion, Professor. Yesterday was a very momentous time in the history of ASEAN and Asia Pacific. It was the signing of Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or RCEP, where ASEAN is signing a trade agreement with China, Japan, South Korea, Australia, and New Zealand. So what are your views on this? Is this going to be the largest and most significant trade bloc in Asia Pacific?
Thank you. First of all, thank you very much for having me. And it's a real pleasure for me to at least get a chance to interact with all your students and colleagues from Indonesia. It would be really nice if I was able to go there. I would have gone there if there was no travel restriction. But in some ways, this is also good because, at least it saves me from the jet lag. But I hope as soon as the travel starts again, I'll be back in Indonesia. As you can see, I have the majestic Borobudur on my back. And we always, in my house, we have about a dozen Indonesian paintings from Bandung, from Bali, from everywhere. And Indonesia is always very much in our mind. Me, my family. In fact, my son, his first overseas trip was to Jakarta when he was 1 month old. But anyway, on your question, I have mixed feelings about RCEP for several reasons. One is, of course, it's a very good thing, and timing is really good because this is a time when you know that there is a backlash against globalization. Free trade is not supported by a lot of people, especially in the West. Free trade has become very problematic as a concept. In the US, as you know, President Trump, or soon to be ex-President Trump, has been really on a war path against any kind of free trade, including, as you know, the TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership. So this is good that ASEAN and East Asian countries are leading the way at a time like this to create what would be, yes, the largest free trade area in the world. I'm not sure without India it will be the largest because, well, in terms of actual free trade, maybe it will be because APEC is not a free trade and India is also not part of APEC. So that's good. It sort of reverses the decline of openness and globalization. Where my concerns are is that, first of all, you have India is not part of it. It pulled out, and because of last year, because of concerns about China. And there is, although India has never been a front runner or a champion of free trade, but when you are thinking about the third largest economy in Asia Pacific, individual countries, is not part of a trade deal. So that takes something away from that deal. And also, the United States, of course, has never been part of RCEP, but it will be important to know what will be the US attitude towards RCEP. And we don't know yet because President Biden coming in, President-elect, hasn't made it very clear what is his attitude towards free trade. It will be very careful and cautious, but having, even if US is not a member, but having the support of a, now we are back to liberal internationalism a little bit in Washington. Having US support would be actually quite good. Not in terms of actual, trade expansion, since US is not going to be a member, but at least in giving it some sort of international legitimacy. And the third thing is we also have to know how this RCEP is going to proceed in a time like this. RCEP was negotiated more or less before COVID-19. So this is basically putting a formal stamp to what has already been negotiated. But 1 year is a long time ago. It feels like a century ago. So the whole of Asia and Pacific, or the whole world, is in economic crisis. Of course, East Asia has done relatively better compared to, say, Europe or United States. But we still don't know what would be the meaning of free trade in a time of deep economic crisis. So those are my concerns. I think it's a great development, very timely. It'll almost like kick-restarting globalization when globalization was stalling. But we have to wait and see what its actual impact is going to be. And in terms of India, whether it will come back to the negotiating table, the door is open for India. What will be the US attitude towards RCEP, or the US will support it without being a member, or start its own bilateral or its own multilateral trade negotiations, and what will be its impact on the economies that are going through recession. So maybe I would be able to have a better, more definitive answer next year after we are past this immediate economic crisis.
Thank you. We have a number of follow-up questions on ASEAN. We have Fira from Hasanuddin University, for example. Do you think it's a good time for ASEAN to rethink about its integration? Should it strengthen its institutions? And then we have Fernando from Pelita Harapan University asking, will this also change India's relations with ASEAN? You mentioned that RCEP may not be the largest trading agreement or bloc without India participating. And there are also questions, for example, from Ibu Angel of Universitas Kristen Indonesia, and also Haikal from Erlangga University. How is the U.S. view on this? Will Biden presidency change its stance or position in Indo-Pacific and also in towards ASEAN, to be specific? So I'll stop there. Yeah.
So there are several questions here. On the question of ASEAN integration, absolutely, this is a great time for ASEAN to step up and have a number of new initiatives to reaffirm the commitment to regionalism. Because as I was just saying, this is a bad time in the world for everything. Multilateralism, for global governance, even for regionalism. So the European Union, which is considered to be kind of the role model for a lot of regional organizations, is itself in deep crisis. And so to me, any kind of a boost to cooperation, whether that's the global level or the regional level, is very welcome. And so ASEAN should, in that sense, this is a very opportune time for ASEAN to come up with some new initiatives, whether it's in global health. RCEP, as I said, in that sense is very good, very timely, but also more health cooperation, more political and security cooperation is really going to be very, very important. So I hope ASEAN will do so, and especially in managing not only economic relations, but also managing relations with China, managing relations with the great powers of the region. On the question of India, India has always been something like an outlier. I mean, it's, India was away from Asia-Pacific or Indo-Pacific cooperation for quite some time. India, of course, in the 1940s and 50s was a leader in the Asian regionalism movement. Pan-Asian movement. So you have heard about the Asian Relations Conference in 1947, the 1949 conference also held in New Delhi, and it's called Conference on Indonesia, where Indonesian freedom movement was supported against the Dutch police action. India played a key role in convening that meeting. Then, of course, the most important one that we all know about, the Bandung Conference. India was one of the 5 conveners. But after that, in the 60s and 70s, for a variety of reasons, for domestic reasons, for preoccupation with Pakistan, also the war with China in 1962, India sort of got distracted and moved away from Southeast Asia. So it was only in the 1990s that India came back to so-called to the table and strongly supported ASEAN and became an ASEAN dialogue partner. And then later India became a member of the ASEAN Regional Forum and the East Asia Summit. But still, India is a little distant from regionalism in Southeast Asia compared to the 1940s and 50s. So this is why RCEP membership for India would have been really good. And this would have meant a big commitment by India to ASEAN. But India does have a bilateral trade agreement with ASEAN. And I think ASEAN needs India, India needs ASEAN because of geographic proximity. And also India has a lot of things to offer. May not be capital, may not be the amount of economic aid that China can offer. India doesn't have a Belt and Road initiative, but India has human resources, India has technology, and also India has the ability to provide some sort of a strategic support to ASEAN. It's a big military power, big naval power, military exercises, and the like. So India is critical to the Indo-Pacific, Indian Ocean security. And on that one, ASEAN is always going to look to India as a valuable economic and strategic partner. So that would be my answer about India. India is going to be important to ASEAN, maybe not in the direct, in a very direct way, but certainly as a close neighbor and partner, India's role would be very important to strengthen ASEAN. India has been very pro-ASEAN, very supportive of ASEAN for now, since the 1990s at least. On the question of Biden administration, I think it is a bit early to say, but my sense is that every time there is a change of government or administration in the United States, there is a new policy framework, at least a policy concept. So some of you may remember when President Obama was in office, the US policy towards this region was called rebalancing or pivot. So everybody talked about rebalancing, pivot. Then when Trump came into power, 2016, he dumped pivot and rebalancing. There's no talk of rebalancing. So his new strategy, the concept was Indo-Pacific. So Indo-Pacific in a way that is designed, very strategic, very much designed to isolate China, which is why ASEAN countries led by Indonesia did not like it so much. Even though Indonesia has its own concept of Indo-Pacific, but it's very different from the American Trump administration's concept. The Trump administration emphasized the exclusion of China, a more strategic concept, more geared towards freedom and domestic freedom, as not just freedom of the seas or oceans. So that is something was kind of more exclusionary idea. Whereas the Indonesian concept, which became the ASEAN position in 2019, that is much more open and inclusive rather than exclusive. So what would Biden then do? I think Biden is going to change. He's not going to emphasize Indo-Pacific, at least as a concept. Probably come up with a new concept of sorts, which will be at least as a policy framework, something not like rebalancing or Indo-Pacific, but something else. We don't know that. At the same time, Indo-Pacific also means a region, and it means theater of diplomatic and strategic operations, and the United States is going to remain a player. For example, the US Pacific Command is called the Indo-Pacific Command. So that's not going to go away. I don't think Biden is going to rename Indo-Pacific, the US Indo-Pacific Command, which is in charge of naval operations in the Indian Ocean. So that will remain. But I think the kind of a rhetoric that we are seeing from Trump administration, that creating some sort of a strategic framework with the view of isolating, if not containing, China, I don't think Biden administration will play that kind of a game. It will still continue with military deployments. It will continue to develop security partnerships. But I think the Biden administration's Indo-Pacific, and if I can say one important aspect of this, would be re-engaging with ASEAN and ASEAN-led multilateralism. As you know, President Trump was not very supportive of ASEAN. He came to only one ASEAN meeting, the one in Manila in 2017. And after the meeting with ASEAN leaders, he left. He didn't even attend the East Asia Summit. And last year, US did not send, the Trump administration did not send any cabinet level official. No vice president, no secretary of state, no defense secretary. So only the highest representative of the US in last year's ASEAN meeting and EAS meeting was a National Security Advisor, Robert O'Brien, who is not a cabinet member. So it was kind of insulting to ASEAN, which then retaliated by only sending 3 leaders, not the entire ASEAN leaders. So the US-ASEAN summit last year was attended by 3 ASEAN leaders and a US sub-cabinet official. So that's really a downgrading of relations between US and ASEAN. But I don't think that will happen with Biden. I think Biden will re-engage with ASEAN. So the Indo-Pacific concept of a Biden administration, if it will keep the term, it will not going to completely abandon the term, but it will infuse much more of a diplomatic meaning and aspect to it. Similar to Obama. Obama had a military aspect and also a very strong diplomatic aspect. Obama came to, in his 8 years, he came to what? 7 of the ASEAN meetings. He even went to Yangon, he went to Vientiane, and he went to Jakarta, he went to Bangkok. I mean, so I think we might see a higher level of engagement from the Biden administration towards Indo-Pacific. Okay, so I don't know that I missed any question. If I did, let me know.
Yeah, no, I think that that was all the question. Let me shift to more academic and theoretical question, because we have a number of aspiring academia and researchers. So the first question is from Rifki, Andalas University. What sort of advice would you give to aspiring young academia or researcher? And then we also have Dharma Agustia from President University. How can we contribute our ideas in the academic discourse, especially from the Global South perspective, as this is still underrepresented? And we also have a question from Anik from UPNVY. What are the types of transnational ideas and norms that are better accepted than others, especially looking at the different contexts at the local level? And we have Lucia from New York University. This is rather different. What do you think are the realignment of countries and their policies in the post-COVID-19 pandemic in relation to SDGs, in relation to security? And even we have a question from Osvaldo, Binus University. Will COVID-19 pandemic will also change international relations with regards to the digital space? So I'll stop there. I think that's a lot of questions already.
Sure. So there are 2 types of questions. One is about the academic part, and let me address them first. So what advice I can give to young academics, and how can Global South scholars like from Indonesia contribute to, I guess, talking about international relations, the study of international relations, and what are the ideas and norms that can be propagated, developed from Global South. Well, I think the most important thing is, I've been writing about this. The study of international relations is very popular now, is growing rapidly around the world. And at the same time, though, it remains very much a Western-dominated, Western-centric discipline. And that's because the field started in the West, and also it's very hegemonic in terms of very Eurocentric and Americanocentric. The ideas from Europe and the United States are dominant. Also the institutions, the journals, the publishers, they all become based in the West. And the Western scholars sometimes recognize it, but they don't care about it. Really, they don't care about it. At an individual level, they might, but actually creating a framework and helping our Global South scholars doesn't happen very much. When I was president of ISA, we started with the global IR movement. It has made some impact, but we still have a long way to go. But that's not the reason for pessimism, in my view, for people like yourself who are in a very large country with a large number of universities. There are about 100 universities, close to 100 universities in Indonesia, certainly over 70 that have IR programs, IR specialization, or IR major. And so you are a critical mass. So I would think that organizing yourself intellectually, I'm not talking about going into the street and demonstrating, but organizing intellectually, attending conferences like this, but also forming your student associations if you don't have one already, Indonesian International Relations Student Association. That's is really good. More networking is good, and more awareness is good. And then you should also do what you're supposed to do. Read deeply and write about it. Those of you who have academic careers in mind, make sure that you get into the habit of writing and publishing at a very early stage. That's what's happening all over the world. I know it's not easy, but there are more and more outlets now, journals now, and including in Indonesia. So try your best to get published and have your views heard. But also, those of you who can afford it, from time to time, go to international conferences. If not coming to the United States, but also to the region. Like there are a lot of ISA conferences now in Singapore, in Korea, which are not difficult to go. Although now, of course, COVID is making travel impossible. But you can attend. Actually, this is a very good time. You should, for the next year or so, until travel resumes, you should actually, those of you who are already in the master's PhD level, you should submit proposals and get accepted. And you don't have to spend money going there, but you can still participate. So there are a lot of virtual online meetings happening, and the fees are very, very low for that. So participation fees. And from the Global South perspective, it is very important to focus on the issues that are of great relevance to the Global South. So there's development, Millennium Development Goals, or human security, or regionalism. I think regionalism, ASEAN is a very good topic for people from Southeast Asia, from scholars from Southeast Asia, because ASEAN is becoming very well known worldwide, and if you start writing and publishing, you would definitely get attention. And also think of some ideas that comes from the local context. And this is one I have been advocating, where they are looking at traditional history, culture, identity, and also the colonial experience of countries, and Indonesia in particular, and to develop your ideas and theories out of that. You should not forget about Western theories. They're going to be there for a while, but do not accept it as the gospel as the last word on the subject. So a lot of Western scholars think that Western theories are dominant because they're used by a lot of, because there are very little non-Western theory out there. But I think just having Western theories available doesn't mean you have to accept it. I think critiquing it, whether it's realism or liberalism or constructivism, I'm talking about IR theory, but political science theories as well, in comparative politics, theories of democratic transition. All this you should question and challenge it, but same time read them, but critique them. And so that will be the best way, but organizing, as I said, go back to my original point, having networks, very viable networks, participating in meetings like this, organizing events or which allow or help you to read and write and publish, get into the habit of doing that, and getting some advice from senior academics who have published and traveled overseas is very, very important. In terms of the question about COVID-19 and its impact on alignments, the big question here is alignments is another big issue in today's geopolitics, global order, so to speak, or world order, is the relationship between US and China. So how US and China will manage their relationship. Now, you all know that US-China relationship is not in very good shape, and it started before COVID because of Trump's policies towards China, very hardline policies, trade sanctions, the so-called trade war. But COVID has made things worse because the Americans feel, and it's not just Trump, a lot of other Americans also feel that China is partly responsible for this virus escaping China. It could have been contained in China at the early stage. And there was concerns about China's lack of transparency, lack of provision of information. And also, a little later, there is a concern in the US about China using COVID-19 to expand its influence. These people who are concerned about this point to Chinese military actions in South China Sea, in the East China Sea, Taiwan Straits, India-China border. So the Americans feel, many Americans, not all, that China is taking advantage of the COVID-19. When Western countries are distracted, too busy fighting the disease, a pandemic, China, after creating, but letting the virus go, started promoting conspiracy theories about where the virus started. Some Chinese officials actually claimed that the virus started in the US, was brought into China by American military officials. Anyway, we don't want to get into that, but I'm talking about a perception, right or wrong, that China did not do enough to contain the virus. And now that the virus became global, but China was able to manage it because China has a political system which allows it to contain the virus. It's very disciplined, very authoritarian, easy for China to impose restrictions, travel restrictions, quarantines, which is impossible in a country like US because of people's lifestyle and people's freedom, concerns about personal freedom. And because of that, a lot of Americans are not in a very positive attitude towards China. There are still a lot of Americans who still want to have good relations with China, but generally the climate is a bit negative towards China. So how this is going to work out is really the big question, and that will affect alignments. The question about alignments, some people have argued that we will see a rise of China, the COVID-19 helping the rise of China. China will have more friends and allies, and where the West is distracted. But I don't think that's what is happening. I have seen there are also in Southeast Asia, my own observation, talking to friends, and even if I haven't traveled, but I talk to my friends throughout the region quite regularly, that China is also viewed with suspicion. It's a provision of masks and vaccines are welcome, but it's not considered adequate and sometimes also viewed with some suspicion. China is not the only country in the region who have done well in containing the pandemic. If you actually ask other people, people say, well, Taiwan has done very well, South Korea has done well, Singapore has done relatively well, Thailand has done very well, New Zealand, Australia, and Indo-Pacific, that area have done well. So they also can provide support and vaccine. And the United States is really ahead in the game now with what looks like a successful vaccine coming up. So there are more choices, and Southeast Asian elites sometimes feel that they should not put all their eggs in the China basket. They should not allow China to become too dominant in the region, which is a very traditional Southeast Asian way of looking at great powers. But they don't also want to antagonize China. They don't want to isolate China. They don't want to choose sides between US and China. So I think what happens therefore, particularly from Southeast Asia, is going to be very important in deciding how the geopolitical rivalry between US and China plays out. And I have a feeling that, even though in the United States under Trump lost a lot of ground in Southeast Asia, under Biden it will maybe not come back, but it will restore some of its credibility and prestige, because it will be a little bit quite different from Trump, much more multilateral, much more inclusive, much more nuanced approach. And that could therefore, create a new dynamic. It also may lead to some cooperation with China. So US and China relations may become not completely cooperative like during Clinton years, but maybe much more cooperative than under Trump. So we will have to wait and see. But I think Southeast Asia, ASEAN, will become a key test of US-China relations, because this is a region China is paying a lot of attention now. And this is where also, I'm not talking about Americans, but also Southeast Asians are not always comfortable getting that much attention from China. And therefore, how to balance it, create some sort of a equal distance between the two great powers will be very important for the future. Finally, quickly on COVID-19 and digital space, I don't quite get the question, but if you think of whether it will increase the importance of digital technology, digital learning, digital communication, digital marketing, the digitization of world politics and globalization, absolutely. It was happening anyway, but now it is inevitable that there will be much more digitization of global interactions, including economics and education and travel and tourism as well. Okay. Next question.
Thank you. We have also a number of questions with regards to IR theories. Do you think that with COVID-19, health is going to be a part of human security concern? So that is a question from Putu Narendra, Mustopo University. And also with regard to COVID-19 and what is happening in the society around the world and anxiety with regards to this and government's poor response to COVID-19. A question from Haviza IIRS is, do you think that constructivism as a theory will also be more prominent in analyzing security issues, including issues of human security? So I'll stop with these two questions, and we'll move forward with questions related to the U.S. elections and the aftermath.
Yeah. I think yes, health is becoming very important, and health and its link with human security. As you know, human security always emphasized health security. It's one of the core elements of human security. And right now we know that health is the number one global concern at this since January this year. So this is a great time to study human security with a focus on health. which was always part of human security, but now it is really very clear and very topical in that sense. And of course, we know that different countries have responded with different degrees of success to COVID-19. And countries which emphasize national security, like United States, but de-emphasize human security. I don't know that you know this. The United States is not very good in promoting human security. I think it's partly the free market system, the absence of the reluctance of the state to get involved in things like universal health care. United States doesn't have a universal health care system. And I'm not surprised, by the way, that the United States has such a large infection and death rate, which is surging as we speak, because it doesn't have a good primary healthcare system, universal healthcare system. So it has an excellent world-class, world-beating research and development capacity, which is why the vaccines are going to come from the US, more successful ones. But it doesn't have the basic primary healthcare, universal healthcare. So there is a contradiction. You have very high level of science and technology, very poor grassroots level of health security. So to me, human security, human health security requires both, but it actually requires even more the kind of basic healthcare, basic provision of healthcare to everybody, irrespective of income levels. So when Amartya Sen, the economist, proposed the idea of human security, and he got the Nobel Prize for economics, by his main thesis is that every country to develop must provide two things: primary education and primary healthcare. Without primary education and primary healthcare, no country can develop. Now, you can see now that without a universal, strong healthcare, even a rich country like the United States is losing lives at such a rapid and massive rate. On constructivism, well, I like constructivism. That's what has been my theoretical approach. I think constructivism is always going to be important because it is the only theory that looks at ideas and norms and culture. If you are writing or studying international relations from Indonesia or Africa or Latin America, of course, culture identity is very important for you. And constructivism allows for cultural explanations of world politics. It's always going to be popular. And also the issue of norms and identity is not going to disappear. In fact, they're going to be more and more important. So I would think that constructivism remains important. Just try to make it, what people like me are trying to do is to make it more sensitive to the global South. Instead of saying all the good ideas and good norms come from the global North or the West, some of our research agenda, my last single authored book, Constructing Global Order, was an attempt to look at how ideas like human security, human development, responsible sovereignty, ecological sustainability, and even human rights, they come from various parts of the world, not from a single part. And certainly they don't come only from the West. So I make several case studies to see how ideas actually emerge from different parts of the world, including a lot from the global South, even though they don't get recognition in terms of recognition from the West, that they are actually contributions from the global South. But that should not deter you. Constructivism has been a little bit Western-centric, but there is an opportunity to look at ideas and norms coming from below, from the global South. And I think constructivism can help to put that on the map, on the table of international relations scholarship. And in terms of, sorry, was that the question? I think I've answered both the questions.
Yes, you have. Thank you.
We'll take some questions.
Yeah, so the next batch is on the US elections and the aftermath. First is from Hani, Unsud University. Professor, what are your views on the controversies around the electoral system in the United States? So that is the first question. And second question from Timothy, Udayana University. Trump's presidency is unique in the sense that it's difficult to explain it in from any international relations theory. So perhaps you can also share your thoughts on how to best analyze President Trump's foreign policies from IR angle. The third question is from Lucia, New York University. Do you think that Biden's election will also alter the international world order now that he's putting faith back into internationalism, multilateralism? And the final question is from Welly, Binus University. What do you think of Biden presidency's position or stance with regards to nuclear proliferation, especially with regards to the conflict in India and Pakistan? So those are 4 questions.
Yeah, those are very, very good questions. And let me try to answer them. First of all, the electoral college system, the electoral system. It is very clear to everybody now that the US electoral college system is not very democratic. So because it, just like the US Constitution, original idea was to have a separation of powers between executive, legislature, and judiciary. But now we see that the judiciary is politicized, the legislature, the Senate in particular. The fact that a country like California, which with millions of, it's one of the largest state, or the second largest, has 2 senators, same as Montana, which has a few million people, means that the people's vote as a whole in the country doesn't count for as much as it should. So you can see that in the electoral college system, which reflects that sort of inequality among states, you will see that even if California has a larger number of electors, but many states in the Midwest or the South have smaller number of electors, members of the electoral college who got elected. But it still doesn't, it reached a situation where the winner, like what happened in Hillary Clinton last time, she had 2.5 million more votes than Trump, 2.5 million, but Trump got elected. This is the paradox of democracy in the US. So the popular vote doesn't match with the electoral college vote. Luckily this time, it looks like Biden will have the majority in popular vote and majority in electoral college vote. He already has that, and I think it will be confirmed. But Biden has close to 5 million more votes than Trump as we speak, which is larger than Clinton. But it's still possible that in future we could have another situation where the person who wins the popular vote may not win the electoral college majority. So that's not very conducive to democracy. And the fact that the people's voices, that because of the system in the Senate, every state, no matter how big, how small, have 2 votes, 2 senators, means a lot of people in large states have the same representation in one of the most powerful chambers of U.S. government as people in a small state. So this creates all kinds of imbalance. And I think, but it's not going to go away. It is almost impossible to amend the U.S. Constitution. You require not only support from both houses of the U.S. Congress, but also 2/3 majority among the states. And then you need the consent of the president. And also the other thing that is about the US politics now. It's not institutional. Well, it's partly institutional, but it is the political culture, the political division, the kind of a deep division, the kind of flying of, conspiracy theories flying around all the time, the refusal of Republicans, not just the president, Trump, but Republicans to accept the elections and trying to discredit, delegitimize the Biden's victory. It's just a travesty of democracy. It doesn't really create a good image of US democracy. There was a time when the United States was a beacon for democracy. It was supporting democracy elsewhere. But now it cannot even project a good image of democracy at home. So there has been a vulgarization of domestic politics in the US, thanks to President Trump, because of the kind of language of politics has become crude, debased. There's no decency, and it's a partisan, of course, but it's also refusal to accept election results, saying that Biden wins because of fraud, and there is no evidence whatsoever of fraud. State officials, intelligence officials have said this is the most secure election in the US in recent memory, and that there is no evidence of fraud. But the president keeps tweeting that there is fraud, widespread fraud, and Biden wins because of fraud. This is just debases, degrades US democracy. If this came from one or two leaders, political leaders, or maybe one or two congressmen or senators, that'll be okay. But it's coming from the president, and the whole number of Republican senators and leaders are going along with this. Doesn't create a good image. So apart from the constitutional, institutional feature, the political culture of the United States is now not very attractive. So the Trump's foreign policy, how can you explain from IR theory? Well, I think the best way to explain Trump is that he is a nationalist and he's a nationalist and an isolationist. That is probably closer to realism than to or mercantilism, which is economics aspect of realism. It's certainly not liberalism. He's not an internationalist. He doesn't engage. He has withdrawn US from WHO, UNESCO, and Iran nuclear deal. So that's definitely not a liberal internationalist. It is explained by realism, but realism of a certain type, realism that is associated with self-reliance or mercantilism. Trump is anti-globalization. He doesn't like supply chains. He doesn't like free trade. He wants US to produce everything at home. He wants American companies to close their shop in China or Indonesia or Europe and come home. He wants American military to come home. So that's very much of an isolationist, but of a kind of a classical realist position in some ways. And he's certainly not a constructivist, unless you think of constructivism as something that talks about bad norms, some bad ideas. He has no positive idea about international relations, no moral. Constructivism can be many things to many people, but people like me associate constructivism with primarily with the spread of good norms, moral ideas. This is the first theory since idealism, which say that morality, moral norms matter in international relations. President Trump has no interest in moral norms. So I would consider him as a kind of an extreme version of mercantilist, realist sort of a philosophy or approach. In terms of Biden's administration's approach to world order, well, I think it's a bit early to say, but I would say that he is a liberal internationalist, similar to Obama, similar to Clinton, Hillary Clinton, and Bill Clinton. He will be therefore quite different from Donald Trump. Having said that, he is not going to bring back what we call the liberal international order, where United States created and dominated multilateral institutions, free trade, promotion of democracy and human rights. Even if he wants to, the United States is not in a position to dominate manage world order on its own anymore, because of competition from China, competition from Russia, competition from other actors, and also the regionalization of world politics. So United States is no longer going to be a liberal hegemon, what we call liberal hegemony. Liberalism, liberal international order as a hegemonic order. So United States will try to re-engage multilateralism. Biden will re-engage multilateralism. He has already said that he will rejoin the Paris Climate Agreement, which Trump had withdrawn the US from, but only just this month, US the date of formal US withdrawal happened. So US is technically out from the Paris Climate Agreement. But Biden probably will do that on the 21st of January. The first thing he will do is to re-enter the US to Paris Climate Agreement. And then he is going to rejoin WHO, multilateral institution. I think he will revive the Iran nuclear deal, which is also a multilateral agreement. So you will see that. You will see also, he's not going to promote democracy the way Americans used to do, but he's also not going to support dictators in the way Trump has been cuddling with dictators, Putin or, with Viktor Orban of Hungary. So Biden will have, he don't have that kind of cozy relation, certainly not with Russia, Putin of Russia. And he will also ease on trade. He's not going to be totally anti-globalization the way Trump was. So he will continue with, he will revive US interest in trade, maybe no free trade agreement, but certainly having economic interdependence built through trade. That will happen. But none of this means that liberal order, international order under American dominance will be back. I think liberalism will continue, liberal internationalism will continue, but it has to compete with, coexist with other types of orders, like Chinese Belt and Road, which is not liberal internationalism, but it's dominated by China. It's more of a bilateral, transactional approach. Well, that is going to continue. Similarly, regional arrangements in the European Union, ASEAN, Africa, they will continue. So we're not going to see an overarching single liberal international order of the kind that people talked about in the 1990s, or even until the end of the Obama administration. So on the question of nuclear proliferation, I think the most important development is not India, Pakistan, it will be the Iran nuclear deal. So it'll be really important to see what Biden is going to do to revive the Iran nuclear deal, which Obama had negotiated and signed. European Union is part of it, China is part of it, Japan is part of it. So this is a major deal because this is a major effort by the international community to prevent a country from going nuclear by giving it incentives and sanctions. And Trump just withdrew from it totally blindly, simply because it was negotiated by Obama and did not listen to anyone. It was really a very well thought out decision, but very political decision. So I think we'll see Biden might revive it. I think very likely, but I cannot be 100% sure how soon he can do it. And then in India, Pakistan, that's an interesting question because we have for the first time an Indian American really as a vice president. This has never happened before. So the vice president of the United States, she was born in the US, is fully American, but she has strong Indian heritage. Her mother was from India, South India. And that, I don't know how much that will affect US policy towards India, but there are a lot of people like Pakistani Americans are concerned that Biden will be more pro-India and so more support for India. But on the other hand, we also know that Democrats are much more into non-proliferation, and India's relations with democratic administrations have not been very good in the past because of this non-proliferation issue. So we will see how US handles the India-Pakistan relationship. I think India has become a de facto nuclear power. It's much more accepted internationally. And that's probably going to remain the same. And the United States I think the United States will continue to have deeper and closer engagement with India because this is not a Republican Democratic thing anymore. There's a consensus in the US that the United States needs India if it's going to basically not contain China, but have a policy of balancing Chinese military and strategic behavior. Okay.
Thank you. Now with the changing geopolitics with Biden's election, there are a number of questions from Fania, University of Indonesia, Marvel Binanusantara, Osvaldo Binanusantara. Geopolitical landscape, who do you think ASEAN should better ally with? Should it be the US? Should it be China? Or should it also foster closer relationship with the European Union? Mm-hmm. So perhaps your thoughts on that, Professor.
Well, that's a very good question. I think my answer is very simple, with nobody. So ASEAN should maintain its autonomy. A regional autonomy is a norm of ASEAN. I have written about it. It's one of the norms of ASEAN. So have good relations with everybody, but not align with anybody. Maintain distance, especially when it comes to strategic alignment. Now, all these powers have something to offer to ASEAN. So China can offer aid, infrastructure, and also China is very close. So you cannot think of ASEAN security without looking at what China might do. The United States is the real military balancer, whether it is Trump or Obama or Biden. If there is going to be a strategic balance in the region, United States is the only country that can provide it. And I think most ASEAN countries welcome that, even if they don't say that. They don't want the US to be overbearing, dominating, but be over the horizon, maintain its military presence, and provide a counter to China, because otherwise they think, China's military power is growing so rapidly that no combination of ASEAN country can stand up to China. So there has to be some kind of an outside balancer, which the US will do. Only the US can provide. The European Union is more like a normative power. So it has, expertise, technical standards, and diplomatic capacity. So, and European Union also has a pretty good global reputation. You may not realize that because European Union is not in the best shape after Brexit. But if there are opinion polls done in Southeast Asia where European Union comes up very high in terms of expectation among countries in Southeast Asia of doing the right thing in international affairs. There was an opinion poll done in Singapore. I think it's been going on for every year. So it was released in January. And the opinion poll asked which country you think can be expected to do the right thing in international affairs. This is the question. And Japan tops, followed by the European Union, very close, followed by other countries. There are about five countries. So United States will be third. China has actually come last, or India somewhere in between. And when people are asked the question, which country poses the most significant challenge, meaning threat to your sovereignty and interest, China comes up more than 50%. So this is the opinion poll, and the European Union comes on the bottom. No threat to Southeast Asia, which is ironic given that European Union has countries used to be colonial masters, and China has been a victim of colonialism. But today in the 21st century, things have changed so much that China is seen more of a security concern. The European Union is seen more of a benign power. So given that, I think ASEAN's policy should be not to take sides with anybody, not to align with anybody, but try to engage everybody so that you can get benefits from each of them. So infrastructural aid from China, but again, not at any cost. So I think the important thing is to have a handle that negotiate with China for aid and infrastructure on your own terms, not in Chinese terms. And ASEAN can do that because every country wants to be friends with ASEAN. So ASEAN has the ability to therefore maintain that kind of political balance. And I'm not saying ASEAN can play one power against the other. That's too strategic. But to say that if you want to deal with ASEAN as a group, and if ASEAN can maintain its unity, it can then engage each of these major powers and get benefits from each of them, while at the same time managing their rivalry, easing their rivalry, as well as providing good offices, the ASEAN-led institutions, for example, without taking sides, without aligning as a group with any. Now, individual ASEAN countries are going to align with other, outside powers. So Singapore is close to US, Cambodia is going to be close to China. That's okay, but ASEAN as a group should not align with any single power. That's kind of my view. All right.
Thank you. So with Biden's election, do you think that the U.S. will also have stronger position in countering China in the South China Sea tension? And do you think that the U.S. will still maintain its presence in Afghanistan, in Syria, and in other countries? And what do you think about this enthusiasm, this large voter turnout in the U.S.? Will it also encourage Trump, for example, seeing that he has garnered a lot of votes to run again in 2024? These are questions from Riva, Raka, and Destia, and 3 from Wenjie. So your thoughts, Professor?
I'm pretty sure Trump is thinking of running again right now. That's the strategy that he's playing now. Discredit Biden's victory, say he won because of fraud, mobilizing his people, not conceding. He may never concede formally. All this is indicative that Trump wants to run again in 4 years, and he expects to win because he will discredit Biden as much as possible. And if Democrats don't capture Senate, they don't get the 2 seats in Georgia, then of course they have Republicans will have majority, and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell have always said, even during Obama time, he'll do everything possible to obstruct a Democratic administration. So Trump is going to run as of now, unless there is a serious issue that he gets indicted, there are criminal investigations into him. He can be indicted, he can be jailed, or somewhat, he's going to fight those legal battles quite intensely. But that's also another reason why he wants to run, because he knows that if he's politically inactive, there is a greater chance that he will be in jail. Because there's a chance that cases against him are really serious, and it could actually lead to all kinds of sanctions and including imprisonment. On the question of the Afghanistan and Syria, I think Democratic administration is more likely to maintain some presence in Afghanistan and Syria, but Syria is probably less likely at the moment. Afghanistan, of course, Trump may completely complete the withdrawal. We don't know what's going to happen in the next month or so, because he has fired the Secretary of Defense and appointed his cronies. That could be one way of speeding up complete U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. But I think when Biden comes into power office, he might reintroduce some presence. If there is still a U.S. presence, he might keep it there. So it's not going to be a total withdrawal from Afghanistan under Biden, or maybe reintroduction of some sort of a U.S. presence there. In terms of, the very first question, I might have written it in the wrong way.
South China Sea.
Yeah, South China Sea. I think there is a very good chance that the new administration will maintain a strong presence, freedom of navigation operations in South China Sea. Now, I don't see a lot of changes to that. It will continue. And the United States will also maintain a military presence in the region because that's a bipartisan now, a very strong military presence. There is, in fact, Trump is less likely because Trump is more isolationist than the Democrats. So certainly, I don't see a major change. In fact, as I was saying earlier, we'll expect some change, but that change will be adding the diplomatic or reintroducing a strong diplomatic engagement with Southeast Asia, with allies. So there is definitely one thing Biden is going to do very quickly is to revitalize US alliances with Japan, with South Korea, with Australia. Trump basically neglected, insulted, patronized all these leaders. And Biden is going to revitalize US alliance with Japan and in South Korea and Australia, and certainly continue with Singapore as well, and India, build up on that. That's going to be, I think, one of his first foreign policy priorities. As part of that, military deployments and other things will continue, but those deployments will be have a kind of a more of an allied context, and it will be supported by alliances or relationship partnerships. Like US doesn't have an alliance with India, but partnership, they will be beefed up and strengthened so that you have a much more comprehensive strategy. But he may not call it Indo-Pacific. He may call it something revitalizing. I think there is a great deal of dismay in the US about Trump's relations or approach to America's traditional allies, including Japan, forcing them, insulting them, calling them as free riders, and have really left a bad taste in the minds or mouths of American allies. So Biden is going to have a much more nuanced, much more friendly and strategy and approach, which should be definitely one of the big changes in U.S. policy towards the region. So I think that much we can expect even in the short term, by the way.
Thank you. We also have 2 questions related to Indonesia. So I would like to invite Your Excellency Ambassador Dino, if you would like to come in after Professor Amitav Acharya as well. So the first question is from Lucia, New York University. Do you think that Indonesia will have a role in mediating the Israeli-Palestine conflict? So that's the first question. And 2, a question from Satria, Slamet Riyadi University. Do you think that is the right time for Indonesia to still pursue its global maritime fulcrum agenda? So those are the 2 questions.
Okay. So I think on the question of Indonesia playing a role in the Palestine-Israel issue, it's difficult to say what kind of that role be, because we're in a situation where things have changed so much in the last few months that with the recognition, mutual recognition between Israel and United Arab Emirates, and also the kind of Israeli settlements and downgrading of the Palestinian issue in the Arab diplomatic agenda makes it really difficult for a third party to come in and play a role in terms of finding a diplomatic solution to this. So it will be a good move in terms of offering goods offices, but whether it will actually have any impact is pretty hard to say. So I will leave it there. In terms of global maritime fulcrum, as a policy idea, it is great. I think Indonesia, as the largest archipelagic state, should have a strong maritime policy. It's only natural that Indonesia should focus on being a center of maritime security and make maritime security its priority. But the question then is whether Indonesia is willing to commit resources and attention to developing the capacity and the diplomatic framework as well to pursue the strategy. So in my view, being a fulcrum, being a kind of a center of global maritime affairs it requires several things. First, to build up your own naval capacity, and at least to be able to maintain internal maritime security within the archipelago, but also have some degree of external, out of archipelago power projection ability. The second thing is, of course, diplomatic and political, so organizing countries with maritime interests to come together and have dialogues and also develop both military cooperation, but also diplomatic cooperation geared towards naval issues, maritime security issues. And the third thing is you need to have also a non-military aspect in terms of maritime resources, marine resources. How do you develop and exploit those resources in a way that also is advantageous to Indonesia? And there is also one other training and education in maritime affairs, becoming a global center for research, training, and education in both civilian and military maritime affairs. So all these things have to come together, and it requires a significant commitment of resources, consistency, and also support at the highest level. Now, my own sense is that despite all the talk and policy framework of being a global maritime fulcrum, I don't think Indonesia has invested so much in bringing all these different elements together and to make it kind of the highest national strategy, highest order of priority in its national strategy. But I may not know everything. I haven't followed this as much as I should have. But what I have read from experts who have written about it, there's a lot more that can be done. But I think it's the right strategy for Indonesia. It's absolutely, look at the geography of Indonesia between the Indian and the Pacific Oceans, in archipelagic states, with so much at stake in terms of maritime resources, maritime conflicts in South China Sea, great power rivalry in the Indian Ocean. This is a no-brainer to think of Indonesia having that strategy as a priority. But it's one thing to have a strategy, other thing to actually make it work by commitment of resources and a political attention at the highest level.
Okay, let me just add a point on the Arab-Israeli thing, since Mbak Dayu asked me to do so. Yeah. Look, it's very important. I hear this sometimes, from our politicians and from our members of the public. Indonesia must resolve the Arab-Israeli, Israel-Palestine conflict, right? What is important, when we say that, let's not say it out of vanity. Yeah, labay. You know what labay is? Yeah, everybody knows what labay is. Amitav doesn't know what labay is. Labay is a bit vanity, right? Yeah. Because you got to be realistic. Look, the one conflict resolution project that Indonesia heavily invested in was Cambodia, and you wouldn't believe how much we invested in that politically and diplomatically. We knew the players there. We knew we had communications with them. We built relations with them. We were able to just network them and move them in the right direction until there was, this was Foreign Minister Alatas was able to push them towards a final agreement. In Palestine, we really don't know too many people there. They come here once in a while, right? But we don't know the Palestinian leadership, the personalities, right? Even if we know their phone numbers, there is nothing to work on in terms of our ability to partner with them very closely and to push them towards a negotiated settlement. On the Palestine side, on the Israel side, we don't know anybody at all, right? We don't even have diplomatic relations, right? And if you want to be successful in negotiating really what is a very complex conflict where other actors have tried and failed before, the United States, Norway, the UN and all these, right? You got to know the people on both sides, and you got to be able to know the issues and invest as many resources as possible. And to be honest, we're just being a vain about this because we don't have all those. And to think and pretend that we do is just wishful thinking, right? So again, it's a nice idea, but really the reality on the ground is just, we simply do not have the political capital to do so, and nor the diplomatic resources to mediate. And I'm sorry to be so blunt about it. Yeah.
Thank you. I think, yeah, we need to also be realistic about Indonesia's role in mediating those conflicts as well. So final round of question, Professor. With regards to ASEAN, do you think that ASEAN needs to increase its ambition? Do you think that ASEAN needs to be more political, similar to the European Union, for example? And should ASEAN expand into not only Southeast Asian countries, but towards Indo-Pacific? So what are your thoughts on this?
Okay. Well, I have a very different view on this than a lot of other people. I actually think ASEAN should not expand its attention, but should focus more on its immediate neighborhood. So this idea of ASEAN centrality, that ASEAN plays the driver's role in what used to be Asia Pacific, now called Indo-Pacific, I think it's too ambitious because ASEAN is a group of relatively weaker, not small in terms of size, but relatively weaker and developing countries. And Indo-Pacific or Asia Pacific is a region of all the major powers of the international system. Now you have US, you have China, you have Japan, you have India, Russia. So it's not very realistic for a group of weakened developing countries to try to manage the affairs of a big region. Up to a point, yes. When the geopolitical circumstances were benign, ASEAN could do that. But now that competition is heating up, the best ASEAN can do is to actually manage its own neighborhood, keep Southeast Asia stable. And that will be ASEAN's biggest contribution to global security, not just regional security, but keeping Southeast Asia free from conflicts, not allowing great powers to use Southeast Asia as a pawn in their hands, as like a competition. If you look at the US, I think Pak Tina, as the former ambassador to US, I must say one of the most successful ambassadors, is very much remembered and missed in Washington. You would know this, that when Americans talk about ASEAN, it's only in the context of China. I think the kind of a subtext there is that how can the US use ASEAN against China? And we talk about it every year. When my center, ASEAN Studies Center, organized meetings, say, is there a need for US? Is there a need? Does the US has a need for ASEAN except in the context of China? So that is really unfortunate. I think ASEAN should therefore try to limit its ambition. I think keeping stability within Southeast Asia, preventing conflicts, interstate conflicts, like between, say, Singapore and Malaysia, for example, or maintaining a regional stability against terrorism, maintaining a cooperation against pandemics, climate change. These are very powerful, important goals, and that also takes a lot of resources. What happens in North Korea, just as Pak Dino said, what happens in Palestine, it's of interest, but this is not critical to ASEAN. So I think ASEAN should preserve and deploy its limited resources to maintaining stability in Southeast Asia first and foremost. So this idea of ASEAN centrality, sounds very nice, and everybody is paying respect to ASEAN, but it's also too much of a burden on ASEAN. And it's a bit unrealistic to think of ASEAN being able to manage the relations among the great powers, especially US and China. There's a lot of things ASEAN can do in Southeast Asia, improving people's welfare, quality of life, health security, climate change, deforestation, addressing deforestation and pollution, the maritime security. So I think ASEAN will have its hands full trying to manage things that are happening in its neighborhood. So I'm not saying ASEAN should withdraw from all these organizations like EAS or APEC or ASEAN Regional Forum, but also I think there should be maybe a more realistic reassessment of what ASEAN can and cannot do, what's within its capacity and what's beyond its capacity. Maybe Pak Dino can say something, that he may have a different view on this.
I totally agree with you, Amitav. And, I think ASEAN centrality is becoming more difficult these days. And I think when ASEAN should speak up and push harder, sometimes ASEAN doesn't do it. And sometimes ASEAN tends to be shy for I don't know what reasons in conveying its views more forcefully, right? ASEAN is known to be very polite organizations with very polite people. But sometimes if you want, respect, or people want to, if you want to be treated differently, sometimes you got to raise your voice and push harder, right? But ASEAN centrality is still the only game in town for now, right? Where everybody can comfortably come in, and they come in with without much burden. If the US was the one inviting, then China or Russia won't come. If China was inviting, same thing, right? But this is where ASEAN has its value added, right? But the question is, ASEAN should not be just a convening agent. We're not an event organizer. We should have substance and can play the game and can push left and right and raise our voice up and down when we need to. And unfortunately, ASEAN doesn't do that enough.
Well, I agree. I mean, ASEAN, of course, ASEAN is the only honest broker, so to speak, in the Asia Pacific. And if there was any other power trying to build a regional organization, you'll, as Binus said, other powers will not come. So ASEAN is the only entity that have a neutral, honest broker role, a convening power. And that's good. I mean, I have no problem with ASEAN continuing in that. But when any further expansion of this and trying to resolve problems in Northeast Asia, one has to be realistic whether ASEAN has the capacity to do that. So my sense is that ASEAN should get all the great powers to come, talk to ASEAN, but to solve problems of Southeast Asia, and not necessarily use ASEAN as a pawn in the rivalry against each other. The Chinese have never forgave Hillary Clinton, because I think in the meeting in Hanoi in 2011 of the ASEAN Regional Forum, Clinton basically challenged China and on South China Sea. And so Chinese felt that ASEAN is giving US a platform to isolate and criticize and put pressure on China. So that's the way of where Chinese see US using ASEAN against China, Americans see China using ASEAN against America. Now, ASEAN has to be very careful about this. And to do so, it has to be absolutely maintain its unity. You cannot have situations where some countries sing in different tunes than others, like what Cambodia did in, again, 2012, where there was no declaration, ASEAN declaration, foreign ministers declaration, because Cambodia would not sign on to anything that has been mildly critical of South China Sea. So if ASEAN can, and centrality comes with unity, and unity comes with centrality. There can be no ASEAN centrality without ASEAN unity, and vice versa. So, but if ASEAN can do that and bring all these great powers, engage them, but make them to work for the interests of Southeast Asia, rather than have this sense of ASEAN should not get carried away by this, that everybody is coming and paying respect to ASEAN, so ASEAN is very important. Well, the ASEAN does have a comparative advantage, as I said, honest broker, but that also means great powers come here for a reason. And they don't come here just because they want to be friends with ASEAN, they also want to promote their interest. So you have to play that role, and the only way you can do that is through unity, internal ASEAN unity. And I hope ASEAN can continue to do that. It has done a pretty good job, and I do see ASEAN having a very significant role for the future of Southeast Asia, and as an actor in managing regional order in Southeast Asia. But I am skeptical when ASEAN tries to play a role outside of Southeast Asia, especially in the Northeast Asia or South Asia or a larger Indo-Pacific is something different, because ASEAN is the hub of Indo-Pacific. It's in the center of Indo-Pacific. So Indo-Pacific is fine with me in terms of ASEAN maintaining a role in Indo-Pacific, because this is ASEAN's own neighborhood. And that's, again, exactly what I'm trying to say, that anything that concerns ASEAN directly, get the big powers to come here, but play to the tunes of ASEAN, play by the terms set by ASEAN, rather than use ASEAN to have their own sort of geopolitical rivalry, and use ASEAN as a pawn in their own geopolitical rivalry.
Thank you. It will also be interesting with Brunei taking over from Vietnam as the chair in 2021. So Professor Amitav Acharya, thank you so much. And also Ambassador Dino Patijala, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, participants of this virtual meeting, please join me in thanking Professor Amitav Acharya, who has spent an hour and 30 minutes, even beyond an hour and 30 minutes with us. We have a lot of insights from ASEAN, US elections, and if its aftermath, China, security, IR theories, globalization. Not only that, an hour and a half was also motivational, because Professor Amitav Acharya also shares advice and tips for young researchers and aspiring academia in IR. So let me also thank all the participants of this meeting for your questions. And let me also convey my apologies if, as moderator, I have not managed to read all of your questions. And with that, hope to see you on the 20th of November at the Global Town Hall. And let me invite Willie to moderate the next part of this.
Thank you.
Willie, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dayu. And of course, our highest appreciation to Professor Amitav Acharya, who have answered quite a handful of questions from our participants today. Thank you very much, Professor. Moreover, our gratitude also extended to all of the participants who have contributed tremendously during this discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, before we conclude this event, probably Pak Dino will say a few words, and I'll hand over to Pak Dino.
Yes, just a last word to say thank you to Professor Amitav, and for the students. Really, what you heard was really a world-class discussion from the leading mind in international relations. So you are very lucky to wake up early in the morning and to listen to him. Our thanks go to Professor Amitav for his time, and also for generously sharing his thoughts. I want to remind all the students that what separates us in international relations, it's not gender, it's not age, it's not even degrees, bachelor's, master or PhD. What separates us is the quality of analysis, right? And that's how you see yourself grow from a student of international relations to become a more mature scholar, judged by the quality of your analysis. And we saw today that Professor Amitav is where he is because of his quality of analysis. He's very scientific. He doesn't say, he doesn't take sides. He says things as it is. Right? So we thank him very much. He will be speaking again in the same forum with me on Friday at 9 a.m. Make sure you tune in at 9 a.m. For the Global Town Hall, and tell all your friends and bring more of your friends, because we have now 5,000 participants. We aim for 7,500 or even better, 10,000 participants. Yeah. Wow. So tell all your friends and let's get a good number out there. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I look forward to it, and I also want to thank you, Ms. Dayu, for moderating it. That was excellent. You really got a lot of questions to me, and I think it's not easy to moderate a meeting of 120, 30 participants. And thank you, of course, Dino, for inviting me to do this. I really enjoyed it. It's really nice to interact with so many Indonesian students, but just, given that we are not traveling, there's no hope to travel in the next 6 months. This is my life. This is the longest I haven't traveled since I was 18 years old. The longest I haven't been on a plane since I was 18 years old. So this is surreal in some ways, but it's really nice to have this opportunity to meet not 1, 2, 10, but hundreds of you, dozens of you, and share my ideas. So I'm very grateful.
Thank you very much once again to Dr. Dino and also Professor Amitav Acharya and also our moderator, Mbak Dayu Amurwanti. And ladies and gentlemen, before we say goodbye, we have 2 important announcements to make. The first one is that the Global Town Hall will be convened in just 4 days. So ladies and gentlemen, please kindly invite as many as of your friends and colleagues as possible to register at our website, www.gth2020.com, in which you can also find a complete list of confirmed speakers, such as Indonesian Foreign Minister, Her Excellency Retno Marsudi, Foreign Minister of the PRC, His Excellency Wang Yi, Director General of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, and also we have a confirmation of Distinguished Professor of International Relations, Professor Joseph Nye, and many more speakers to be announced. And the second announcement that I will make is that FPCI will convene another pre-conference event titled Ask Ambassador Piquet tomorrow at 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. And I once again would like to ask all of the participants to register yourself at bit.ly/askpiquet, or you can see it on our Instagram. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to ask our committee to take a snapshot of all of us before we conclude this meeting. I shall assist with a countdown. Rini? Yes? 1, 2, and 3. Once again, 1, 2, and 3. All right, with that session elapsed, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, now we have reached the end of our event. We hope to see you again at Ask Ambassador Piquet tomorrow, and also, of course, at FPCI Virtual Global Town Hall 2020 around the world, around the cloud. On behalf of FPCI and Global Town Hall Committee, I thank everyone who have participated in this event. For now, stay safe and salam. Thank you, Professor Amitav. Thank you, Mbak Dayu.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amitav.
Thank you.
Yeah.